which is just atrocious to have someone running for president on a podcast called Call Her Daddy.
Yeah, maybe she's talking about. Never mind.
No, so say it.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe they're talking about Kamala's vagina.
I was thinking the same thing.
What's poppin', everybody?
Welcome back to the Cole Podcast.
I'm Zoe.
And I'm Steve.
And as you all know, Donald Trump is back in office. He won. He beat the crap out of Kamala, just like he did Hillary, and he is back for round 2. So, yeah, he's going to save the country. Everyone's looking forward to it, I think, but I guess we're going to find out. Steve, what's your take on all this? How do you feel?
So I think that the election was definitely a slaughter.
Rigged.
Slaughter.
Absolutely rigged.
Donald Trump definitely brought the pain. He brought the power. I would say he took this country back for what's good, and I can't wait to see what he's going to do next. This episode will just be basically a rundown on what each member of the cast today has pretty much as their perspective on like what the future of the country looks like, what they think about the election overall. It'll just be an open discussion about kind of all that stuff. Let's start it off by first seeing a little bit of Trump's victory speech. We're not going to watch the whole thing. It's a little bit long, but we do have some highlights, so let's go ahead and see it.
It is now clear that we've achieved the most incredible political thing. Look what happened. Is this crazy? I want to thank the American people for the extraordinary honor of being elected your 47th president and your 45th president. I will not rest until we have delivered the strong, safe, and prosperous America that our children deserve and that you deserve. This will truly be the golden age of America. That's what we have to have.
I think that we just witnessed the greatest political comeback in the history of the United States of America. And after the greatest political comeback in American history, we're going to lead the greatest economic comeback in American history under Donald Trump's leadership.
We're going to have to seal up those borders, and we're going to have to let people come into our country. We have to let them come back in, but they have to come in legally. A star is born, Elon. He's a character, he's a special guy, he's a super genius. We have to protect our geniuses. We don't have that many of them.
This is karma, ladies and gentlemen. He deserves this. They deserve it as a family. I want to thank the Nelk boys, Aiden Ross, Theo Vaughn, busting with the boys, and last but not least, the mighty and powerful Joe Rogan.
We can add a few names like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He came in. He wants to do some things, and we're going to let him go to it. I just said, but Bobby, leave the oil to me.
You know
we have more liquid gold.
You know, it's like delayed reaction. I'm like, stop it.
No, he's just hilarious.
No, I'm just like, man, you know, we have like new media is real when like 3 20-year-old streamers get shouted out at like the presidential like post-election speech.
Yeah, we got Aiden Ross, we got Theo Vaughn, we got Joe Rogan. I mean, hey, I think they really did have a big impact though, because the podcast run that they did before the election probably reached a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And me personally, I watched them on Theo Vaughn and I watched them on Joe Rogan, and I think both of those podcasts were pretty entertaining. I saw a little bit of Kamala on what was it, Call Her Daddy or some shit.
Ugh.
Which is just atrocious to have someone running for president on a podcast called Call Her Daddy.
Yeah, you know what's funny? Isn't that like the third or second largest podcast? Because I don't know what that pod's about, but isn't that just kind of like
just reaches
standard like tea time girly podcast?
I think it's about your vagina.
Oh, my vagina?
Yeah.
No,
How'd they get info on that?
No.
Wait,
It's about
shared
sex.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's
like all the time.
Yeah, that's the whole premise of the podcast. So you used to listen to it.
Just sex.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
That sounds great.
I mean, unless she went into a different direction, because if Kamala was on there, then I would think.
Oh.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess that kind of fits.
Maybe she
but-
talked about. Never mind.
No, so say it.
I was gonna say maybe they talk about Kamala's vagina.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
I can attest for that though, because I don't know shit about politics, but when Trump got on Joe Rogan, you feel me? I was seeing Trump for sure.
Yeah.
I was hella informed just listening to Joe Rogan and all the people that's behind Trump getting on Joe Rogan and explaining what they plan to do. You feel me? It really informed me.
I mean, 100 million views on YouTube alone, and then you got the Spotify numbers too. You got the Apple Podcast numbers. You got all those different numbers. Tons of people watch that show. So, thinking if it didn't have an impact would be kind of insane. It certainly did.
So.
No, 100%. I think that probably is one of the two things that probably made Kamala's like her run a lot weaker is that one, she wasn't as willing to go on a lot of like the podcasts. Like, she was sticking to very traditional media. And then I know another thing that was like whenever she would get on to interview someone, whether it was like either on the news or it was like an independent like media personality, she was like very filtered. And I think it's like limited how you can get like a real perception of her, whereas Trump was willing to go out to these podcasts and talk to them for like 3 hours, where I think, Joe Rogan said like they wanted it to not be at his studio. They wanted it to only be 45 minutes. They wanted like probably people in the room, the same way with like Shannon Sharp, probably the same type of editing they had for most of the like news outlets she had interviewed on. It's like you're not going to get a real perception of her, and I think her hiding behind that and not willing to be more candid played against her.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of different issues with how Kamala did her campaign. Obviously, I don't know the ins and outs. I didn't really even pay too much attention to it, but I think the fact that, if you watch, like, for example, the debate, she brought out the same rinsed up bullshit talking points from the 2016 debate. Like, I remember, like, towards the end of the debate, didn't she pull out the there's good people on both sides thing? Like, literally, that's like 7 years ago. And also, it's inaccurate. So when the whole campaign relies on basically calling Trump racist, calling him a bigot, all this other shit, it falls apart when people start to think about the policy decisions. Like, I'm not saying Trump has expressed the best policy decisions. I mean, personally, I think he has expressed some good policy decisions, especially recently, after the winning and everything. But just with Kamala, she focused on pretty much everything they said Trump was doing. She did that. That's what I think. Like, just call him mean and nasty and he's going to lose. That's basically how I see it.
Yeah, kind of like feeding off what you said. I think her campaign like leaned really heavily into identity politics. That's why women's issues was a huge part of what she was talking about. And a lot of times she like tried to connect with people, not through like, I would say very mutual, like a very like grounded mutual understanding about like the people she wanted to help, but more of just being like, hey, everyone, just remember, I'm like you. I'm a POC. I came from a middle-class family. I had 2 mothers, and it's like, well, what are you going to do? It's like, well, I'm going to do the best I can. It's like, what does that mean?
I have a plan.
That's what she said.
I mean, more or less.
I mean, the moment that it all crumbled for me was at I swear, at the debate. I sent it in the group chat we have, but when she's like, I have a plan. We have a plan. Listen to me. I have a plan.
Yeah.
It's just like, come on.
They asked her specifically all the time, what are you going to do about the Israel-Palestine crisis? And she's like, all I'm going to say is that the violence needs to stop. And then when claps like drones. Like, that tells you nothing. Yeah, but she like empty. Yeah, she loves using those like emphasis, like pausing and re-emphasizing the same word, and then before you know it, you didn't hear anything, but boy, do you feel good.
9/11 was bad.
Yeah.
Yes.
9/11.
Queen.
9/11.
Did y'all see the video where she's like, sometimes you gotta be woke. Just make sure you stay woke.
Yeah, just
But
stay
make sure you
woke.
Stay woke,
She
okay?
did a crazy
You
little
ain't gotta be
laugh.
the wokest, but you gotta be more woker than when you were woke.
Yeah.
What the?
Oh man.
Yeah.
What did she say at that Dan Bradley? What was the thing she said with she had like a rapper at an event. She had Megan Thee Stallion,
plenty
And
of
Yeah.
Quavo.
Quavo.
And then she
Oh,
just
like
said-
my good friend Quavo said.
Oh yeah, like my good friend Quavo says, you gotta walk it like you talk it.
Insane.
Oh man.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah, she used to
went
code
wrong,
switch
too.
like a motherfucker.
Sorry, I think she went wrong too in her approach, like the people she was bringing on and the rappers and the performers.
Definitely.
Like, I feel like she was trying to like really target the black audience, but in a
Yeah.
bad way. Like,
Yeah.
You're trying too hard.
Because it's
Yeah.
like, I think this is why like Obama's campaign ran so much better, because it's like it was like very hard pandering, and it's like Obama didn't run his like campaign on the fact that like, I'm a black man, so like, hey fellas, like you need to, like he didn't like switch up and start trying to talk like he came from the streets. He was just like, he was a person that was like relied on his like one charisma and just talking about like what he's gonna do. And I think people liked him for that. Even if like you would argue today, if he's a good or bad president when he was there. It's like you can't argue that he was a very likable person, and that's why people gravitated to him. She wasn't very likable, and like her presentation is like, you're not very charismatic, you don't explain yourself well, and then you're clearly pandering. So it's like, I can't even get a sense of what you stand for, and then every time you step on stage, you seem very fake. And I think that's like made it hard for the people she wanted to connect to actually connect to her.
Let's talk about the the obvious media bias. I feel like it should be nearly impossible for anyone with a general, like objective viewpoint on the world or something like that. I don't even know what language to use, but if your idea of the world is that the person that's put in power should be worthy of being in that position, and then they take the entire media apparatus, push it against one person, and expect that, and then basically set it up for that person to fail. Right?
Yeah.
I think you would have to be really dumb to pretty much be like, oh, well, they used every resource they possibly could. They paid every person. They bought out everything, and they still lose just based on rationality, I think. I don't know if that made any sense, but
I think I see where you're going. Basically, it's just like you put in like at the forefront, clearly there are a bunch of like organizations or just like an obvious like campaign to take this man down in any way possible.
Yeah, and it never works.
Yeah, like in the obvious media slant, obvious bias, to the point to where they tried to assassinate the guy twice.
Yeah. Like either he has something important to say, either he's actually worthy of getting the position, or he's a wizard, because they outspent the Trump campaign like 3-1 and still got slammed.
Yeah.
So I think that it's kind of just, I don't know, it's like living in a fantasy world to be on the side of, I mean, Lisa, what's it like living in the fantasy world to be on Kamala's side?
Yeah, Lisa, what you
you've been kind of silent
like
over
to be a
there.
Kamala lover.
What do you think over there?
Listen, I mean, Alonzo made some very, very good points, right? Most Americans probably don't actually look in depth as to what the real issues are in terms of, this candidate is going to do this candidate is going to do that. They just think like, oh, this person's charismatic. They're, say a bunch of stuff that I like to hear or whatever.
The average American is dumbed down and basically pays attention to superficial things.
They do, yes.
Well, that's true.
I mean, you're not wrong.
That's how it works. Like, if you look at some of the demographics of the race, a lot of the more educated parts of the country voted for the Democratic side.
Here we go.
So.
All right.
But that's based
on
no.
Shots
That's
fired.
No. That's just based on like.
You mean the brainwashed parts of the country? Is that what you're saying?
It's just the data, where the colleges are and everything. The people in those areas.
I mean, would you say those people are educated? Because I'm like,
yes, they are more
statistically,
educated.
they're just enrolled. Those are the most enrolled areas of the United States. But I'm just like, once you're enrolled in college, you just gotta finish. You don't gotta be smart to finish. You know how many dummies I know that finish school?
Yeah, but I'm just saying. Like,
I'm sitting next to one right now.
Hey, shut up. No, but I mean, like, as a person that I could sit on the side of like, oh, Lisa's patting me on the back, I'm educated, blah blah blah. But I'm like, critical thinking is a whole totally different skill that I think that you don't necessarily get from college. Well, I mean, you can absolutely like refine it in college and school. I'm not saying it's useless, but generally, I think a major thing with school and getting a degree is just your ability to like, follow orders and like basically just like follow, conform, and essentially just consistently work through something. You don't have to necessarily have a mind of being able to like figure out problems in real time. You just got to be able to like do what you're told until you're done. So
it depends on what you're doing for sure.
Yeah, so to me, I'm just like, I get it. It's like, the more like educated groups will vote Democratic, but at the same time, you got to remember a lot of college universities, in my opinion, are all still headed by, very left-leaning organizations.
I would take a big...
I'm just saying, like...
Go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just saying, like, that's what the data showed. And, I mean, if you look at the policy and, like, the economics of everything, the economist said that Trump stuff will increase inflation. Even Elon kind of mentioned it in, like, a leaked little thing. Like, oh, there's going to be a little bit of pain in the beginning. But, eventually it might, get better.
Yeah.
I mean, my thing is with the whole tariff plan, the tariff strategy, right? The tariffs are going to increase taxes, as they what all the Democrats say right now, the liberals or whatever. They all say, okay, the economists, like Lisa just said, the economists, the ambiguous economists have said
Yeah,
that
they're very ambiguous. They're not on the internet.
the
You
legion
can't
of the
search-
All-knowing
you
nebulous
can't find them
economist.
on the internet. Speaking.
Yeah.
the
No.
legion of economists out there have all decided that tariffs are suddenly a bad thing. I've watched some good videos about tariffs, and I can understand that. Okay, you put the tariffs out there, now people have to pay, just to import goods, import goods, and now the pricing becomes less competitive, or it becomes they basically price fix it. But someone like Donald Trump could probably, if I had to guess, lead the country towards, okay, so China has objectively worse steel than us. We have steel here because we're making steel now because China can't just import their shitty steel for low prices. Then instead of us trying to match China's price just because we have the chance, because that's what happened last time, like in the 30s or some shit, they basically set up tariffs, and then the tariffs ended up making it so that Chinese steel is expensive. So the Americans, even though they don't have to pay the tariffs, they're going to raise their prices to match the Chinese steel because they can. If they don't do that, then it doesn't result in inflation. But it's just a matter of getting the people on the side of actually improving the country. So a person like Trump probably could do that. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think I'm sorry, I don't want to talk too much, but I think that the plan is like, okay, the tariffs will incentivize Americans to build stuff instead of, buying it from overseas or whatever.
Yeah.
So, but whether that happens or not is the big thing. So.
Yeah.
We just have to, as a country, choose not to buy this other stuff. I mean, America makes good stuff when we make stuff, but when it's so cheap, when the rise of Walmart happens, right? When there's so much infinite plastic garbage that you can get for 10 cents, maybe you don't want to have a factory that makes something in America because you have to pay taxes. And then that goes into the idea of the regulatory boards, right? Like someone at face value will hear, oh, Trump wants to get rid of the Board of Education. Why would he do that? Then the kids won't be educated. It's like, the Board of Education doesn't educate kids. The teachers do. The Board of Education is the bureaucracy that allows that system to function, right? If you remove the bureaucracy, you save billions of dollars. Now you can use that money to pay teachers to teach the kids, so teachers aren't making $30,000 a year. But if you just look at it at face value, like, oh, the Board of Education, we need that. Most people don't even know what the fuck that is. They don't even know what a school district is.
Yeah.
I don't know what a school district is.
Yeah,
Like,
I
I don't really know what that does.
Yeah, no, I don't think most people understand how the hierarchy actually functions with school districts.
Yeah.
I know I don't really. I mean, I know there's like a board and stuff, but in terms of like the specifics of what they vote on and what they control, I'm assuming it's all like probably bureaucratic, like budgets and policy, making sure it's enforced and stuff like that.
Yeah, probably,
But
It's like gen eds,
Yeah.
not really necessary, but
Yeah.
it's part of the process. It's been baked into the system, so they struggle to get rid of it.
yeah, I don't think it's like that deep into the. I don't think it like contributes that much to like what is actually being taught or like what's being picked up. Because I think that's going to start at the ground level. Like, what are the teachers actually, teaching the kids, and like how do they
Well,
relay the message?
I mean, if you think about it, think of it like a court. They're like deciding what is fair game and what's not fair game. Like the Board of Education is what I mean.
Yeah.
Like they do actually decide like the rules.
Yeah.
Most likely.
No, I
as
agree.
oversight. Like you should do this, you shouldn't do this, that type of stuff.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
does go into like what their curriculum in school. Like I went to a parent teacher conference for my niece, and the curriculum in her school is they don't believe that they should bring homework home because it's not helpful to the kids. And I said, "Excuse me, that makes no sense."
That's crazy. What else would you call it?
That's what I said. I said the homework will continue to help them. Like it'll reiterate it in their mind, so then they'll learn whatever they're struggling in. So for you not to give them homework,
That's absurd.
that's what
That's
I
pretty
said.
crazy. Eliminating
As the kid who
homework.
hated
That's why
homework,
regulations are a thing.
well, no, but the
Do it
but the
whatever.
regulations don't necessarily make it any different, man. I'm telling you, bro.
I don't know.
Who knows?
Well,
I don't know.
If it should just be a conversation, like if you're in a school district, you don't need 30 layers of bureaucracy above you that define your curriculum loosely, right? That could be decided by like two dudes.
Are we actually talking about like the Board of Education in schools, or is this like a metaphor
That's
for
local.
tariffs? Because
That's local.
No, I'm talking about no. So the point why I brought up regulations is more so the Board of Education was just an example.
okay,
Regulations for me, basically in terms of tariffs, is like okay, so why would someone choose to go to China to purchase goods when they could make those goods in America and probably spend a little bit more? Well, because the cost of making it in America would be obscenely high because of all the regulations that are on production in America, right? Like I think Trump gave an example on the Joe Rogan podcast where he was like, "Oh, well, we had a nuclear plant. They were making a nuclear plant while he was president or some shit, but there was a bunch of different regulations. So they have this super strong cement. They made the plant out of this cement, and the wall was like a fraction of an inch too thin or something, and they can't re-pour it because it's the hardest cement in the world. So it cost like hundreds of millions of dollars, but they couldn't use it. And the regulation, I mean, obviously it's a nuclear plant. You don't want to make exceptions on something like that, but just regulations like that. I would imagine if it's a 15-foot thick wall, that fraction of an inch probably wouldn't have made a difference.
Yeah.
But stuff like that, like building materials, things of that nature, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to pretend like I understand tariffs like in-depthly because I really don't. I know. So I'm like, I'm not going to be, I can't be the one to say like I voted, you know, for Trump based off of like that specifically. I just kind of trust that I believe he probably has an understanding of it to where if he's going to say tariffs are a good idea, he probably has an understanding of it that, you know, most people probably don't, to where he believes that in the long term it's going to be effective.
And there's probably an economist that's not bought and paid for that's also giving him that advice.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, it's just off the fact that like even when I listen to like his interview with like I listened to both Elon's interview with Joe Rogan and Trump's interview, and it's like they both gave different things. Elon was more like it depends on how it's used, and even Trump defined basically defined it as like if you know how to use tariffs, it's very effective. And because he says he has a background where owning Trump Towers and being a businessman and that, he's like, I know building and logistics very well, and just that have a better insight into how companies work with regulations both in and out when it comes to those things. And so knowing that he's got that background, Elon Musk, just being the CEO of Tesla and having a real good understanding of logistics and like companies utilizing third-party specializations, and he's backing him, there's something that tells me that I could probably trust their opinion on this, that tariffs will probably be effective, especially when dealing with international commerce. Yeah.